Keith Jamison, a.k.a. Gator Guy 231 across the DFS industry. I'm the head of soccer content at Fantasy Sports Insight, and I'm stoked this morning to be joined by Lee Snyder. He is the head of soccer content at Numberball DFS. And, man, we've been talking on and off the last few months about maybe doing this, and the day has come, Lee. Welcome on, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. And I thought maybe we'd be talking about Premier League, but I'll take Bundesliga. We've got soccer.
So let's like not bury the lead though, man. Like we're talking Bundesliga now, but I think it was last night. I think it was La Liga announced end of June. I know Serie A is like beginning of June. MLS might have like a tournament in Orlando, which now I have to not. I live in Tampa, so I have to somehow not end up there and spend like 3 days watching soccer. It's gonna be crazy, man.
Yeah, well, especially with I think these leagues are going to be trying to finish their seasons quickly, so the fixture list is just going to be packed.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, we're seeing more and more action in the list. I hope that we don't go back to like interleague Tuesdays with like 117 person toe poke. Like if we can keep over like 1,000, that would just be an amazing summer.
Yeah, I guess as long as American sports don't return, we should be fine.
That's like a double-edged or like whatever we want to do. It's like, I want basketball back, but I don't want it for soccer DFS. So somebody's going to be like, oh, what?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, but hey, it's all good. Guess what? We got German soccer. I hope y'all did good last week. I hope y'all did a lot better than me. I saw Lee posting, flaunting out the Guerrero. I didn't tell you I'm going to do this, but we're going to talk about Guerrero real quick. So first off, congrats. I'll give you that. But so you were playing Guerrero for that one cross, right?
Well, here I'll tell you what my thinking was. He was not originally in my cash or optimal player pool. I saw that Dortmund lineup with Hazard out. Well, so we thought. I was not going to 17-year-old Gio Reyna at 4,700. I did think Guerrero was going to have a larger share on sets. That's the reason I played him. He came out with 2 goals, so it worked out well.
Hey, man, I mean, I was so much better off playing, I already forgot his name because I don't want to remember, but the set guy that it was at like left back, but he's played a lot of left back and did okay. Whatever. I've had so much bad luck with Guerrero and Dortmund over the years that I was like, oh, that's bait. And then he scored 2.
I mean, you're right. He's been brutal in Champions League over the past couple seasons. So,
yeah, and even sometimes with Portugal, he'll show up like when you're just like, oh, man, he should be set up. And then you're like, one cross, you're like, but there's Ronaldo there. You should really cross it to him.
Exactly.
But speaking of that, I think Dortmund is going to be a big topic of conversation here. But before that, I do want to just kind of tackle one more thing. So I think a big thing in DFS right now is really how you're going to be handling the home teams. Obviously, in soccer specifically, in Germany, I'll say specifically, there's some crazy venues where, we would be weighing home field advantage quite big with the crowds. But obviously we don't have that. How are you treating that yourself?
Yeah, so the crowd is certainly an element, right? But it's not everything because you've still got to travel. You've got to be in a different locker room. You've got to play in a pitch that you're not as used to. So, it's where the crowd counts for something. I'm just not sure how much, and I've probably been guilty of placing a little bit too much weight on that. I mean, I do think it is closer to a neutral field match now, but maybe we're putting a little bit too much stock into it. I was just looking at 538 site, and they will do matchups between teams, and they put right on the top bar of their site that they're only considering it a 10% change in home field advantage. So they don't think it's that much.
And they're huge data people. I like in my head as you were talking, I was like, maybe like a 25% weight, but like personally, when like I'm making a lineup right now, I just can't do it. Like, I'm still more going to be matchup guy versus the pitch. And I think me and you were kind of talking beforehand. I thought you brought up a great point that, like, actually, I'll let you share. Do you want to mention that point, like with like the Norwich types?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about less talented teams that kind of thrive on that environment of their home pitch and their crowd, I think that would, make a bigger deal for that type of team. But, if maybe it means less if we have two top teams they're just both talented anyway, right?
Right. Or Bayern's hosting a Shrimp and it's like at home. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if it was home or away. Like Bayern's gonna, dominate possession. So all right, well, let's jump straight into to the plays. And the way that we're going to do this is just kind of we're going to start in the forward pool, go to midfield, drop an defender. I'm going to tell you, who's going to get destroyed at goalie because that's going to be the guy I have. And then we'll get out of here. We'll probably end up talking about some construction along the way, but let's roll right into it, Lee. So I'm going to start us up at the top. So we right away get to go ahead and talk about Dortmund because we got Sancho and Holland way up at the top of the salary. Sancho at 10-2, Holland 9,700. Sancho is everything I've read is gonna be starting. So how are you handling Dortmund?
In terms of like my optimal and cash pool, I'm probably going to leave them both out. Sancho is the highest priced player on the slate, and he's dealing with this injury. So my concern there would be minutes. I mean, he does have a floor, but the minutes concern me a bit. And then Haaland is obviously he's boom or bust. He doesn't have much of a floor. So I mean he's going to be a GPP option every week, absolutely. But is he optimal? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I mean I think a big point too. Like I talked about last week, and I felt kind of vindicated, but Wolfsburg's they're just like a very solid team that like oh God, that's gonna like sound like a terrible sportscaster take, but like they don't beat themselves. But like if you watch, they're just very, very like rigid in the formation. I just think it's tougher to break down. So I mean, all this means like I said this last week. What was it with Schalke going to Dortmund? I'm like, hey, it's a derby game. And like they didn't even show up at all. But I do think from like an optimal standpoint, like Dortmund's not going to make a lot of builds. Like the pricing on them just is brutal. What do you think though about like GPP? Like, are we getting to the point where enough people are going to talk off of them that they actually could be a half decent GPP look?
It probably depends what entry level we're talking about, right? Because the sharper guys, higher entry, yeah, I think they'll be willing to move off of them. But if we're talking lower stakes, I think you got some people who are new to Bundesliga. They saw Dortmund just get that 4-0 smash last week. Haaland scored and assisted, so I think there probably will be some chasing of that. Yeah, at the lower stakes.
So maybe it's kind of like these reverse things. On lower stakes, you could actually, more so play some more optimal type of constructions. But as you go up, maybe like the 33 and higher, where a lot of the normal soccer names are there. We can potentially like leverage some ownership off. I don't know if I'll do that, but it's just a thought. Just for those people.
No,
I
think it's a good thought.
But I have to play Holland. So me and you are going to be very much disagree on play from who the heck? I'm still going to get these teams down, but
Gladbach.
Yeah, it is Gladbach. I can't say the whole thing. I know it's like Morsche Gladbach. I'm just going to say Gladbach. But so I had him listed as GPP only for myself. You think he's favoring kind of in cash? You want to kind of go over that?
Yeah, I mean, he's not like a lock in cash for me, but he's someone I will consider, if I can fit him. And there's a couple reasons. Just first, that his floor is actually pretty solid. He's averaging a floor of 9 DK points over the season. So not bad for the 9K salary. And then I like the upside of Gladbach the most of any team. So when you can add that upside to his moderate floor, I think he's viable for cash or optimal builds.
Yeah, I mean and that is the highest total. I probably should have started off with odds, but we're just going on the fly. But I think that's the only that technically has over a 3 total. So I mean it makes sense. And like Leverkusen, like they can be tough to play, but they also can get leaky in the back. So like when you're committing that many numbers forward, and then you got the benders back there half the time trying to defend, I think that might be a pretty good shout. And I don't think it's going to be that owned. I mean, I guess higher stakes again. I got to like train myself that with these pools being so much bigger, people are going to really be like slaves to these logs. And his logs pop. I have him up right now, and it's like, oh, there are going to be people that play him. So I think that's kind of the top end, like the super expensive guys. We'll get to Kai in the midfield, but I do think, after that you have a drop down, and I think, at that point we get to really some of the best cash plays. So I'm going to make the argument, and go ahead and disagree, but that Proger, Grifo, and Skav are the three top non-defender, because we'll get to that, but the three top non-defender cash plays on the whole slate, no matter what position, whether you put my forward or midfield. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing with you there, because I'm looking at my midfield pool here, and there's this, I will go through and write out my whole player pool, and then I kind of circle who I feel really strongly about. And I don't have anybody in the midfield circled right now. So, and I do have Grifo and Skav circled, and yeah, Proger, you can throw them in there. I mean, because all those guys have sets, right? So
yeah. So you just took my guy Proger and said throw him in there. I'm going to go a little bit more on this. You can XG me later, Lee. That's how we know you. But I'm going to floor you here, because that is my territory. Guys he was like, I want to say it was like 75, 80% in cash because of his logs last week, and he absolutely dudded. But in the last 12 games, 10 of those 12 are in double digits, no goals in that time, only 3 assists. Like, you're talking about, he had one game that was over 20 DK with no goal or assist. So that is the kind of guy I love. It's like the Andros Townsend of 2017 that we all know and love. So I'm hoping he comes back. I don't really feel that, that like I'm worried about the matchup as much. He is at home.
That's still 90. That's still 90% viable, right?
Right. But yeah, and maybe that was the reason he struggled last week. He was away, didn't know the pitch. He was like, when I cross this, it's not gonna, sail worthlessly where I can cross this 3 different times. But no, I think all 3 of those guys, like you said, they are all on sets. They're all in the majority of sets. The only one that really might be, so Grifo is going to share, but I'm going to talk more and more about Freiburg. I think that they're the team I'm going to really target. I think that we get a lot of like advantage that their names are nothing. They're Grifo. They're I'm not even going to say their name right. They're like Waldschmidt, they're Holler, they're Peterson. Like, these people mean nothing to others, but I just think that they have all the teams. I think, maybe of like the surprising teams could show up and potentially, maybe score 2 or 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, Bremen, I think, are the worst defense in the league, or near the bottom in terms of actual goals allowed and expected goals allowed. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of upside for Freiburg. I agree with that.
Especially if we see our boy Sargent starting. We know he isn't tracking back as much much as he should. But yeah, 59 goals allowed this season. That is the most in the Bundesliga. Second is Mainz at 55. So I've made worse takes here. So let's talk about like the rest of. So I don't have really anybody listed as like a cash only or like high floor play. Wrap me out at the 4 position. Like, anybody else that you kind of have circled?
Yeah, there's just one other name I'll mention, and I don't think you need to go here, but if you do want to pay down at forward, I don't mind Antwi Adeji at 4,300.
Yeah, that's the winner.
He he played almost 90 minutes last weekend. He had 6 DK points with no goals or assists, clearly. And he had a stretch of games like back December to February where he put up 6 or more DK points in 6 straight games. So he does have that kind of a bit of a reliable floor. So if you want to pay down, save some salary, I think you could go there. Probably not optimal, but you could.
Yeah. I was playing with builds on it. I think that kind of gets you maybe if you do want like in one of the other positions, if you do want like a play or you do want to go ahead and just say, look, I know Dortmund's going to score. I don't know who it will be, but I know Holland is going to give me my best route to that goal and do it. Like I think that makes a ton of sense. I do want to bring up though. I do think like from a GPP standpoint, I don't know if it's cash viable, but GPP standpoint, all of these Freiburg strikers or attackers, they all seem to kind of interchange, but they're all cheap, man. Like we've got, let me make sure I pull it up right, but we've got Waldschmidt is 5,600, Peterson 5,000, Holer who's I probably butchered his name. Siege today, come at me, it's fine, buddy. 4,900. I saw him projected as playing up top, so that's pretty cheap exposure to the attack for the team at home playing the worst defense. So might be worth.
Yeah, I think like all those guys, if we're talking about salary based value from an upside perspective, yeah, I think they all make a ton of sense.
And that's always been my thing. I love to get your perspective, but like I'm so much more likely to risk like a striker, maybe even in a cash lineup, that's cheap versus I'm trying to think of like the good EPL example, but trying to think. I'll say this: it's a bad one, but like Shane Long got like crazy expensive towards the end of the season because I think ever since he scored that goal in like the first 6 seconds of a game, that DK's algorithms have been broken. But like his price is getting crazy. And it's like, look, I kind of want some Southampton, but I'm not playing Shane Long to get it. Now then they would like put like Obafemi or something would be in there, and it's like, oh, okay, 4,800 for him. All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, or like when the Burnley forwards would
Yeah.
be cheap in a decent matchup, like those type of plays, sure.
Chris Wood was like criminal for a while when like Ashley Barnes started taking off, and then I think he went on like a crazy goal run, and then his price got out of control too. So, but yeah, that's just my point. Only other name I have circled that I really did like is Baumgartner. I think he plays the 10. Just likes to shoot. He's had 39 shots in 18 games, but if you kind of go back, he has a lot of like 5-shot games in there. So I think you could do worse. Just don't expect like crosses. So let's go.
I mean, some of these guys definitely have a floor from just their volume of shots. So I think he falls into that camp for sure.
Yeah. So we spent all this time on forward because midfield's complete shit, man. So I mean, I think at the top, you want to talk about your boy Kai?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he's playing center forward now, but DK is never going to change that. He's just going to be midfield eligible because they're completely inconsistent with the way they're classifying people positionally. But we don't need to go down that road. Yeah, I mean, he's looked great, right? Like he was great on set pieces last week, and he got those 2-headed goals, I think. But playing centrally up top, he's not going to have a floor, and it's a tougher matchup. So he's obviously just GPP only, but there is upside there. He probably will go overlooked because he's that expensive and he doesn't have a floor at the midfield position.
Yeah, I think kind of to the point that you started, but overlooked as you go up. If you're trying to like maybe get some huge ownership leverage on him in lower stakes, I don't know if that's going to be where you get it. So you really may, if you're like a multiple GPP type of guy, you really may have to, like this week especially, kind of like tier your entries and go, okay, this is my higher dollar GPP contest, or like single entries where all of this flies because everybody is always going to put their best lineup forward in single entry. So if you want to go crazy, or I think that's maybe the way to go. So, okay. Here's the rest of like my midfield pool I wrote down. So the Mirabai, I wrote like cash begrudgingly because I wouldn't pay him in cash. Hoffman, not cash play. I put more GPP. Arnold, more GPP. Guerrero, definite GPP, and I hate you, Guerrero. So like that whole 8,500 to 7,000. I don't have a guy I actually want to play in cash. Anything I'm missing there, or do you disagree or agree?
I partially agree. So, yeah, look, Demir Bay, obviously the scary part with him is you're paying 8,300 for a guy that's playing in a deeper role, right? And he's not even going to have all the sets. There's going to be some sort of share there. I mean, whether it's a Miri or, well, it'll probably be a Miri, but, I think you could go there in cash. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling great about it either. The only thing I will say is I do like that match overall, Leverkusen and Gladbach. I think it's going to be goals on both sides, and I think Gladbach will kind of let Leverkusen rack up the peripherals, whether it's sending in crosses and creating a bunch of chances. So, like, I don't mind the prospects of that whole attacking crew, whether it's Diaby, Bellarabi, who I think will start over Wirtz in this game, Demir Bay, and then Amiri. Like, but the problem is, how do you pick one out of that group? And it's going to be like whack-a-mole. Like, one of them will get the assist or the goal, and the others won't. So, yeah, I don't feel great about Demir
It's whoever
Bay.
you don't select, by the way. Like I'm the idiot that like I actually liked in that showdown. I actually preferred Amiri to not Bellarabi, to Demirbay, and it was only like field positioning. And then honestly, Demirbay's older, so I was like, there maybe is a better chance that he subs off, and the dude plays 90. The only saving grace is that he won my boy Parlo Boss all the money. So other than that, I was just like sitting there like I have him in cash, no GPP. I'm like I made my I put the flag on the hill and he just destroyed it. So midfield, like we both kind of agree, it's tough, and like that's why I kind of had mentioned those forward eligible guys. I think there's a good chance that you could potentially play 4 forward eligible players in all those 4 spots. And then you might even play a 5th in utility. I think it's a weird slate. Now, the first cash guy I have that I have labeled just as cash is Bittencourt. It did seem like he's taking a lot more of the sets over Rashica now even. And, Rashica's a better just overall player, but they're both playing attacking role, and you're getting $1,000 discount on Bittencourt. So I think I'm on team like Bittencourt over Rashica if I go there. You?
Yeah, I believe he took all 4 corners for Bremen in that prior match. And then, yeah, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. I mean, I think that game between Freiburg and Bremen is set as like a pick'em right now, or Freiburg's a slight favorite. So, and they do tend to give up crosses, chances created, shots. So, yeah, I think, Bittencourt was pretty active in a tough match last week. And, yeah, so I don't mind him here. He's got a floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy odds where we're all like – it was fine for showdown, but, if that was like a classic slate last week, you wouldn't have had any Bremen because Leverkusen was always set to do that. I'm just going to pull up odds real quick so people can that are watching this on YouTube. So, like you said, it's probably on a neutral field. It's probably pretty close to square, plus 118.
Oh, yeah.
The only like actual favorite by the books is Dortmund. So, it's an interesting slate, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. We'll go back here. So why don't you talk to me? I thought you brought a good point when we were talking beforehand, just on how some of the better midfield cash plays might actually be these wing backs that are more that DK has classified as midfield. Because in the Bundesliga, wing backs are midfielders, I guess, unless they're like the top wing back on the slate. Then we'll throw them back at defender. So who kind of were some of those names to drop out?
Yeah, so the first one I'd look at is Kaderabek, 5,900.
Yep.
Let me look at my notes on him. Yeah, so in his last 6 games, he's had at least 8.5 DK points. So
Mhm.
really nice floor there for 5,900. And yeah, the point that we discussed before we started recording was that I think there's actually a little bit of value in these wingbacks who are really defenders because I think they're at a bit of a lower risk of getting an early sub with the 5 substitutions that these teams can use now. And, it's more likely going to be some of the midfielders or the forwards coming off first. So, I think that bumps up their value just a bit.
Yep. Any of the other guys pop out? I have Kaderberg written down.
Schmid is
Yep.
another.
That's the other
He's
one.
Freiburg, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you look back far enough, you can find a corner.
Well, we have these locked now.
I think that was Laird posted before last slate that he was going to be so pissed if Halstenberg. No, he put if oh god, who's the midfielder that was crazy high priced that lost all the sets
on the prior slate.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it, but
yeah,
he
me
put
too.
that, and I responded back. Well, Halstenberg, if you look back far enough, Halstenberg took a corner. So it's just it'll be interesting. But yeah, Schmid 46, and then I'll never play him, but I think there are going to be some cash guys on Rudy at 4,700 because I made the point last week. But like Rudy is like the classic guy that I used to play too much of, and like I'm consciously trying to get out of the habit, because if he does lose sets, like you're fucked. Like he's just gonna sit deep. His role is not to attack. His role is to prevent goals, and you just have a destroyer, and you paid like a 3 corner price for him, and you got a $3,200 destroyer.
Yeah, well, that like brings up the point of don't put too much stock into the set pieces, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're only going to win 3-4 corners, it's like, okay, what is that really worth? And I think he only played like 64 minutes
Yeah.
last week,
Well,
so
he said he
that's
got
another scary
injured.
thing.
They said he got injured.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know. That's just like I got a cramp. I have 5 subs. Let me out. So 2 other names I just kind of want to toss out here. So I didn't do too much research on it, but Bennis I can remember from some Europa leagues. Actually used to. I'm making the mistake again, but he has taken some corners for Gladbach. So if you see him in at 4,300, I mean he is like a central line midfielder, but $400 discount off of Rudy. And then so I he's not gonna play. Like I think the coach hates Sahin. Because he actually is like one of the more talented guys, like in the best pedigree on that club. But I guess if he plays, he's probably in line to get some corners, and he's cheap. He's 3,600 and does show up with some DFS value. So I mean, I think that's the only other 2 midfielders I kind of had written down.
Yeah, and don't talk to me about Sahin because I had like 80% of him in that showdown slate, and
Oh
then I had
no!
to do so much tinkering when that
Sofa
lineup came
baited
out.
you. Sofa baited you.
I know. Well, I think the Bundesliga site had them projected to be in too, but they're no good either.
Yeah, I saw that he hadn't, like, the part for me, because everybody hadn't predicted in and my thing was like when I was looking down and researching, it was the fact that not that he wasn't playing, like not that but he was in the squad on the bench. And it was bench. It was like 7 straight benches. I'm like, why does everybody think he's jumping in? Like I was like Googling to see if he had like a hamstring tweak. No, like the coach just hates him.
Yeah.
So no thanks. I don't think we see it. All right. So that kind of wraps up midfielder, and we have a ton of defenders to talk about. No, we do not.
No, we don't.
I think I would argue there's only one defender to actually prioritize, and then from there on, whoever fits. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean it's Gunter, right? Like
Yep.
let's state the obvious. A $5,800 defender playing. Does he play as a wingback?
Yeah, he's a wing back on top of it all, who actually
Yeah,
just completely bombs forward too. So like even like there was a game that he lost he only like took one set. He still, I think, had like 13 crosses. So
Yeah. So, I mean, he's just in your optimal cash build, he's like the first piece, right?
yep. Which means he probably isn't going to play to really screw with everybody. But I honestly, like, that wouldn't be like the worst thing, just to really kind of put people on their toes and get people going like that. That would actually put an edge towards, I think, the better players. But yeah, I mean, if he's under 90% owned in cash, like, I honestly feel like there was mistakes made. I don't see any other defender I want to like pick over him.
Nope, I'm in agreement with you there. And
So
and yeah, I would love if he was out. I'll take that pre-lock edge any day of the week.
well, then we can take Schmid for his one corner in like the last 7. And then our boy Grifo though will be on it, which should be great. So we're gonna do a horror flashback to when defenders and center backs took PKs in the World Cup, and for all of us that I think play more optimally, we all got just completely screwed for a week straight when it was at Norquist, and all these guys were showing up like 40% owned and would have 1 DK, and then it'd be PK time, and all the money would be gone. But so Ben Sabani, he's a $6,400 fullback that doesn't really cross, that doesn't get that much forward, but he does take PKs. So I feel obligated to mention, but I will not be having him in my builds.
Yeah, and it's like at that point, just take Baumgartner for 6,300 at the forward position, right?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Because that's what you're paying for, the upside.
dude, I'll play Holland, or I'll fit Holland or Sancho in before I'm paying $6,400 for 2 crosses from a fullback and praying for a handball in the box.
He's gonna have 2 PKs now.
I know. And it's gonna be like all my head-to-heads. I'm gonna celebrate before lock, and then I'm gonna be like the next 100 minutes or however how long it is plus halftime. I'm just gonna be like, oh, no PK, no notifications. That's the worst too, by the way. I don't know if you feel that, but when you get the notification from Sofa and you're like, oh, not a PK, when you just know it's coming. Goalie, what are you thinking? The most important, non-important, non-projectable position that you shouldn't spend too much time on, but it's totally going to matter for all the money. That position.
Yeah, of course. That's the way it always ends up. Well, I mean, we have to discuss the lowest price keeper here, especially because, we've talked about how Wolfsburg is a solid defense, and,
Yep.
We're off of Dortmund and cash. So I think you gotta look there at 4,100 for Casteels.
Yep. I'm the guy that I was like, even talked up Freiburg's goalie versus Leipzig as the better play to Schalke's goalie. And then I look and there's no Sancho. And I don't know why, but that no Sancho made me go, oh, well, their goal creation is going to go way down. And oh my God, what did he finish with -8, or did he sneak out a save in the end?
I actually had 0 exposure, so I don't know.
Oh, congratulations. We're going to have to do this again just so you can keep going. Like, hey, Keith, you're going to get -6? I'm like, yes. It's a reoccurring theme. So I would actually argue, though. So I think that completely makes sense. I'm trying to, like, more and more, like, in my own style go, just because I don't have any exposure to this other team, does that mean that, like, I have to double down with the goalie? Like, it makes sense, except for when you're wrong. So, like, as I was playing with stuff, I'm big on Freiburg. I just think Bremen sucks. So I don't think it's crazy to pay up for him at 5,100. I think that you have, what is it, Schwalov, but you have the I think you're gonna have the funds to play whoever you want. Like, I think it's just gonna be like, as I'm looking at my build, paying $4K for a fullback that may or may not cross, or am I just like punting a center back, which, like you mentioned, I think was great. Like, center backs aren't really subbing. So you might get 90 minutes of like nothingness. But maybe you're only paying 2,800 and can pay up a goalie. I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts. Is that way off?
No, I mean, I do think it makes sense to look at Schwallow. But I think if you're not going to pay down for Castiles at 4,100, like I think you can make a case for any keeper after that.
Yeah.
Just because all these matches are so close based on the lines we have. So at that point, like the golden rule you have to follow is just try to avoid negative correlation by having attackers against your keeper, but in cash, I mean, you might be able to get away with it, right? So
Yeah.
you can break that rule sometimes, at least outside of GPP lineups. So
I mean, the rule really becomes what Blender said: just play whoever you want. Like, it's you. The more time that you think about it, I feel at least like I spent so much time trying to do it, and then you know, you see, going back to the last Champions League slate, but you see a full Liverpool stack with Oblak being like the GPP winner. So like ultimately, it just becomes it's goalie. I think the single best sort, in my opinion, for a goalie is like the other team and like how many shots they're gonna see, and just hoping for it. And I shame on me. Like Dortmund is like Leipzig was always going to shoot more, so I just think that was like a miscalculation just because I was on Werner.
yeah, actually, I'm glad you just said that because it reminded me of something. So I do project saves every week.
Smart.
Obviously, the variance from week to week doesn't make it that helpful, but I like to think that over the long run, if I
Yeah.
use those projections, it's gonna be plus EV, and the team or the keeper I have projected for the most saves is Castiles. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense. It's just like one of my things as as my soccer mind, like I really want to do a better job of like, just because I don't have Dortmund doesn't mean that I'm just going to fly down to that, because I think from like an investment standpoint, you are almost doubling down at that point because you're going, my fading Dortmund take is absolutely so right that I'm going to take the goalie, and and then if you're wrong on one, like, so you had a chance to somewhat hedge, especially if he's going to be like the chalk keeper, you can go ahead and say, I'm going to fade Dortmund, but I'm maybe going to leverage off of this fade and not just jump to the keeper, because if I am wrong and Holland and Sancho, are on their game, I didn't double make a mistake there. At least I have like, a one outer if my goalie can stand on his head from another game and get me a goal, worth the points. Just
yeah, yeah, hedging is something to think about, but
if
yeah,
he's
it's
an
either that
intentional head, like,
or you just ride or die with your take on Dortmund.
well, I died last week, and so I think I'm still coming.
Touchy subject.
I not not only did I not like play Guerrero, but played the keeper. So I mean that's only like a 40-point swing. So yeah, if you're looking at the bottom of your cash contests, you would find me. It was a good week. But so anything else kind of I'll just give you like one more plug of like your style. So just go over quickly, like you've done a lot on XG. Well, why don't you just kind of tell those that maybe haven't seen your YouTube channel or heard you talk before. Why don't you go over that just real quick and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so I mean, I only recently started doing some video stuff, and so I have a channel, DFS Adviser.
Yeah, make sure.
Um, yeah, like I think there's a lot of differing opinions on XG and how useful it is. First of all, there's a number of models which take into account different data,
Mhm.
so you can argue about what the best model is. But I just think I look at it in the larger picture, because you can look at goals for and goals against over the course of, we've played 27 games now in the
Mhm.
Bundesliga. But if we've got like Dortmund, I think has overperformed by about 21 goals so far, just to use an example. Now, this does not mean that the rest of the season Dortmund are not going to score any goals, right? But what it does mean is when they come up against a difficult defense like Wolfsburg, or a team that is probably going to sit back and try to frustrate them, you could see a game where Dortmund doesn't score their 3 or 4 goals. So I think it just gives us a different perspective against the line or the team total that's out there. And when I see a big discrepancy between what I think the expected goals would show versus what the implied team totals show, then I think there's potential leverage or opportunity there. So that's how I use it.
Yeah. And do you also use it at all with like expected goal, just to go ahead and maybe like gauge some game flow with it too? Like obviously the teams that have higher expected goals are also, possessing it more in the attacking side, because I mean that's where it comes from. Like, have you thought about like that angle?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's interesting because you can look at a team like Dortmund, who is creating a ton of chances, but they're also not. They play kind of a direct style, right? So they're
Right.
not sending in a ton of crosses from wide. So their floor is actually not that great. So I think it is team specific.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because even like, City, who doesn't cross a lot, they don't cross a lot except for when De Bruyne is in, and then all of a sudden he's, you know, leads the EPL or is in top three, just because the amount of chances. Other data that I don't know if you've toyed with, but I'm trying to like do more and more of, because I do love corner kicks. I'm that guy. Um, but seeing more and more about like where these teams kind of go to attack, and like what their different like buildups are, because the teams that are going to attack the end line, those are the deflections that are more often going to go towards corners, versus these teams that just come centrally. Yeah, they can dominate, but centrally is rarely going to end up in a corner. So that's just like one nugget that I'm trying to look, but I'm not as
Yeah,
the data.
I think that's super interesting, and I haven't looked into it. But one more thing to build on that, what I do like to do to get a little edge, especially in GPPs, is I will look at on who scored. You can pull up where team or the types of goals that teams
Yep.
score and allow. So I'll, like Bremen, for example, has allowed 15 set piece goals this
Yep.
season, which is the most. So you can really, that's when you can utilize that and look for, well, here we go again, Freiburg. We can look at them to potentially
Telling
put
you,
in a set
man.
piece goal. So
I'm telling you, and by tomorrow, I'm not gonna have nearly. I'm gonna somehow get like off of fried versus sex. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Like we had that on our sheet for EPL, from who scored, and like that was a huge. Like I screwed up so bad with it. I never got it right. But like I would see like a team that just was getting killed on set pieces that you already maybe like the other team, and that's where you start doing some more center backs, or you correlate that with the goalie, make sure you have the set taker. Like those are really the fun stacks, and where they can win you some money.
absolutely.
All right. Well, hey man, it's fun. It's about almost 7 a.m. now on the East Coast, so we're gonna get out of here. Lee, I hope you have a great day. Good luck in today's showdown. And last thing, why don't you plug that YouTube channel one more time before we get out of here?
Yeah, DFS advisor spelled with an E, not an O.
Okay. Make sure to check them out. I'll have it in the comments too. But keep in mind, please subscribe. For those of us out here doing video, there is no greater compliment than a subscribe button. There's no cost to it. So jump on there. We really appreciate it. And Lee, appreciate your time. You have a good rest of your day. All right.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Thanks for
All right,
having
man.
me.
Absolutely.